I think where we step over the line is when we try to become a little bit too flamboyant with our compliments that do just sound a little bit off the wall, and it's kind of like, well, where has that come from? And now I'm questioning whether that's just one of the lines that you feed, or is that genuinely just for me?
Hello and welcome to the Love Launch Podcast. I'm Joey Chandler, and this is where we talk to experts and everyday people about what love means to them and how we can have more of it in our lives. And today I have someone who's been called the Queen of Conversation. She is an author and entrepreneur, and she is an expert in actually helping telemarketers in their conversations and pick up the phone and talk to people. And when she told me this, I was like, oh, the dating challenge of do you call or not to call, and what do you say when you're on the phone and all that kind of stuff. I figure an expert in telemarketing would have to have some great knowledge on this. So Wendy Harris, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
It's great to be here, Joey. Thanks for asking.
Oh, well, thank you for coming. And so please give us a little introduction about, who you are and what you do, and then let us know, what does love mean to you?
Okay, so as you've very adeptly said, I'm a telemarketing trainer. I've been doing that since 1988, which is kind of why I train people now, because with nearly 2 million calls under my belt and thousands of people through my training workshops, there's not much that doesn't surprise me. And I fell into it because there was no love at home, Joey. That's the absolute truth of it. So I needed to get out for my own sanity. So love to me has meant, for the majority of my sort of 50 years roaming this planet, giving as much love as I possibly could to other people. And that's a sort of compensation mechanism from my childhood. And it's only really recently that it dawned on me that you've got to love yourself first. So it's great to be, an outpouring of love, but actually that can really sort of sink your well, if that makes sense. So if you don't love yourself, you're not topping that well up. And that's what love means to me.
Absolutely. And how, I have to ask, how are you loving yourself more now that you have that awareness? And how is that helping you actually in your business as a telemarketing professional and coach?
It really does come down to your own belief in yourself and then in others. And you question less. So I think you kind of get to a point where you're doing it without even realizing that you're doing it. You're in flow, if you like, because there's no doubt in your mind that you're doing a great job, and that energy that's outpouring in your work actually does come back full circle into you to fill you up.
Right. Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's so simple. I mean, like, there's no rocket science here, right? It's like, love yourself, fill yourself up, be confident in yourself, and then that will allow you to be more of yourself on phone calls, in life, and dating, wherever that is. It's so simple, but why do you think it's so hard to do?
I think because we're brought up to question, how does that work? And it's not really, our business to question why love works. It's an entity in its own right. It's energy, it's feeling. We're taught to kind of not trust our feelings and overthink everything.
Ah, and that, yeah, I'm just like nodding because I'm going through my whole life. Yes. And I'm thinking of like almost every single rom-com movie is some version of that. The hero or the heroine questioning who they are and going through the journey of being more
But
of
life
themselves
is
in
not
some way.
Disney, is it? Life is not Disney. We
Right.
all look for, the hero and the villain and, the happy ending. But life is not like that. So, yeah. And it's only experience, isn't it? That hindsight can be such a wonderful thing when you look back. But it is also about trusting in the moment that the future will take care of itself so long as you are kind to yourself and you love yourself now.
Yeah. I'm One thing you said though is it's in the experience. But I'm wondering, because you and I were the same age, and I know for me, I was going through life, and then I had a certain awareness around things, and that actually, and really like looking at like, wow, I'm about love, and that I can explore this. That really gave me the confidence. And so I'm wondering if is it how to say this is it's almost an awareness more than an experience. I'm wondering because I had a lot of experiences where I did not gain the awareness.
Yes, I think it kind of goes hand in hand, isn't it? That through experience, if you don't, and it's giving yourself that opportunity to actually sit and reflect on that experience that will give you that awareness. And it's kind of the difference, isn't it, between conscious and unconscious, what sits on the surface and what sits underneath. You've got to have a play with that yourself than just be going on for what's next, and not appreciating what you've done.
Yeah. Yeah. And sitting down and reflecting, like, really, like, who am I? Then having the courage to step into that.
Yeah. If I mean, we're talking about love and feelings, but there'll be times through the day where you'll go, oh gosh, that's making me feel a little uncomfortable. For me, in my role, it's normally clients that are going, but I don't want to pick up the phone, it makes me feel weird. And it's the story that you tell yourself, isn't it, in any given situation, is that, I feel uncomfortable doing this, oh, because I'm going to interrupt somebody, or, it's they're not gonna be really interested in what it is I've got to say. But then you have to ask yourself the question, well, is that true? So it's the same with love, isn't it? Is, if you can go out and pick up the phone with love, which is kind of what I do, is go, but you want to help people. You want to share this really great thing with them. So if you're going to approach them in that way, then people will listen because that's what they'll pick up on. That's what they'll hear.
Yeah. So let's go into this because this is so interesting. The idea of if I'm calling someone to ask them out on a date, that's a form of telemarketing in a sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's as good as going up against Dragon's Den, isn't it? Or
Exactly. So let's
I'm
talk
asking for
about
an investment.
yeah. Now hopefully you don't have as many phone calls. You're not making 100 calls a day, but um, but let's talk about like what can we learn from all of your knowledge in telemarketing? How can I apply that to finding a date, creating a date, maintaining dates, and that sort of thing?
Gosh, I mean, when it comes to creating a best first impression, well, honesty is the first part. So, think about your motives. Why do you want the date? And there's going to be different levels. There's going to be attraction, there's going to be sex, there's going to be, well, you'll look good on my arm. I mean, what are it's been so long since I've dated, 20 years. But having a daughter that's like 28 and a 13-year-old that's, just started to get boys interested in her, I just kind of say to them, at the end of the day, relationships are formed on a friendship as much as anything, first and foremost, aren't they? Is that, well, actually, I know that you're not a serial killer or, anything weird. So I know you. I quite like the look of you. You give me this feel. So I'm going to trust my feelings. And then it will come down to that trust of building that relationship to see where it goes. Because And I think the problem that we have in society that I can see looking in is that we want perfection on the first date.
Is that sort of like, I want to have the $1 million sale on the first call,
Yeah,
or some version of that?
I think so. And I think, striving for that perfection in all things, isn't it? Is there's a certain impatience in society, I think, of not just allowing it to sort of organically grow.
Yes. And so if I'm not stuck in perfection, how might that look when I'm calling somebody to ask them out on a date? How might that show up?
Well, a really great tip, if you're really shy and you kind of want to protect yourself, because that's really why we don't like speaking to somebody, because we're not too sure what the response is going to be. There's a really great tip that you can still use your voice and not actually do a phone call, and that is just send a voice note. So you can deliver this voice note, do it on a platform that means that if you record it and you don't like it, it doesn't send automatically, so you can re-record it. But that could be really short and sweet and just a lovely invitation to spend time together, for that recipient to go, actually, they don't sound desperate. They actually sound genuine, and I give it a try. And you can allow their feelings to sort of settle and marinate, for them to consider their response. And I think that's half of the battle with a good conversation, is knowing where to start and how to start that off on a good footing. Because if we, in business, we have 7 seconds to kill any kind of reputation. So I'm guessing it's got to be fairly similar. You might, you've heard the analogy. You've seen a really gorgeous guy in the bar, and you go up and you sidle up and you're waiting for them to offer to buy you a drink, and they open their mouth and they've got a weird voice, and you just go, and you make your excuses. And it can be as simple as that kind of attraction can just kill the moment. So I don't know. That's my advice. Send a voice note. It's a halfway house.
Well, I'm also guessing it takes practice, because you said you've done 3 million calls. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's about 2 actually. But yeah, yeah,
I mean, anything over 1 million is amazing. But I'm guessing you've gotten better over time.
absolutely.
And 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 so this is actually one of the questions I have that's kind of exploring my mind dating. Like, if I'm talking to someone who is really, really good at saying exactly the right thing on a date, then I'm wondering if I'm like, well, they've had a lot of practice at this. Like, is it a little bit too fake? Like, there's this balance between being real and the nervousness and stumbling that we have, and then also, like you said, presenting yourself in a way that doesn't scare anybody away.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing, isn't it? Is that we'll generally have a type, won't we? That so there'll be stock lines that you can practice. So oh, you look lovely tonight. I love what you're wearing. Those sorts of things can be said with sincerity. I think where we step over the line is when we try to become a little bit too flamboyant with our compliments, that do just sound a little bit off the wall. And it's kind of like, well, where has that come from? And now I'm questioning whether that's just one of the lines that you feed, or is that genuinely just for me?
Right, right. Well, I think that is, as a podcaster, I'm learning to listen more. And
Oh yeah.
when I did this earlier, I go back and listen to my recordings, and some of the recordings, I'm like, where was that question from? Like, I wasn't in the moment listening to the guest. I was just thinking of the next thing. I was thinking of, whatever sounded good in my head. And I'm wondering, how does listening show up with telemarketing? And then how might that also apply over to talking to someone on the phone or asking them out on a date?
It's exactly the same, really, Joey. We all in telemarketing. There's a framework. There's a loose script. There is certain key information that you want to delve into and qualify with questioning and get the other person talking. So if you're stuck as to what to say, think of some interesting topics that you could have some common interests in, and sit and listen until they stop and ask you about you. It's the key thing, isn't it? Making sure that it is an equal two-way conversation. But ultimately, if you're the one that's really interested, I'd hope that the other person is equally interested. And if you do get into that conversation, I think you can start to tell pretty quickly. You don't need more than an hour sitting on a date with somebody to know whether it's going to go to another date or, another drink after dinner.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the questions that I've been asking that I find really helpful is like, what do you mean by that? Because there's so many words, and this is like love. I ask, what do you mean? What does love mean to you? And when people bring up words, happiness, joy, whatever kind of are those big, broad words, I'm finding that if I ask, well, what do you mean by that? That creates a sense of me listening because it's something that they said. And it gives me a deeper sense of who they are, because they're going to give me a greater clarification on those big, broad words, because they think they mean different things to different people.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like being in a test, isn't it? What does love mean to you? Well, it means all of these words. Have I covered them all? And that's not really what you're being asked. For me, love is different depending on the situation. I'm one of those that will go, well, it just depends. Are you talking about my husband? Are you talking about my dog? Are you talking about my kids? The birth of them or their achievements? Or are you talking about the fact that I love to get out in nature? Or that I absolutely love helping people through my business? So there are so many different layers of love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just say, like, in that one conversation, I learned now a ton of things that we could talk about. If we were on a date, there's so much there that we could actually talk about, which I think is
When are
really...
you free, Joey?
Well, I think I'm going to have to I'll make sure I'll talk to your husband first. But I do think that listening is it's really important. And because it's so hard, right? Because you're trying to impress people and you're trying, like, oh, that's a good thing to say. It goes back to what you said around, we've been trained in a sense to question who we are rather than explore who we are. So we're always like, well, this may not be the right thing, or that, or are they laughing, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering, and because that's all tapping into our doubts and our fears and fear of rejection, which is a big thing around dating, but also in telemarketing, like, you must be being told no all the time.
Oh goodness, yeah.
And how do I keep my confidence and courage and sense of like who I am and all that kind of stuff up in telemarketing? How might I apply that to the dating world?
Oh gosh, in telemarketing, there's a phrase of it's a numbers game, which, when you apply that to dating, I'm not suggesting that you kiss 2 million frogs, but it does mean that, in a given day, if you're a call handler and you've got 80 or 100 dials to do, the chances are you're only going to get to speak to 5 or 6 actual decision makers. So setting yourself up to know that is the expectation of the day means that when you do get a decision maker, you've kind of got this special pot of energy to turn on and go, oh, it's so great to speak to you, because you're not worn down by the other 94 that you haven't been able to get hold of. So when it comes to dating, goodness, it's a resilience thing. I go back to my opening statement, if you love yourself, then if there is a rejection from that other person, they're not for you. Don't let them dim your light, because there will be somebody out there, that next next call, next situation, next conversation.
Yes,
You know,
yes. One thing that it occurs to me too is also being ready for that decision maker conversation. You
oh
can
yeah,
imagine that if I'm making 80, 100 phone calls, that when finally someone's like, well, actually, yeah, I would like to talk to you about that. You have to drop right into being prepared to actually have that conversation, because like you said, it's so rare. And I'm also thinking around dating, like you kind of have to be prepared for the person who's like, well, yeah, I do want to go on a date with you.
yes.
They're like, they actually are interested in you. And if you're not ready for that, you're going to really stumble, which I think I know I have done. I'm guessing many of us are like, wait a minute, you actually want to go out with me?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm with my husband now. We've been together 21 years. We celebrate 8 years of marriage. It took us a long time to decide whether we were okay, with that. But in actual fact, when I cast my mind back to the very beginning, he asked me out, and I thought I couldn't say yes because my friend liked him. And that's not a situation that you want to get into with your best friend. And it was actually my best friend that said, what was going on there? And I said, oh, nothing, nothing. And she went, no, no, there's something going on there. You ought to get together. And I was like, what? Just giving him the brush off. And now you're saying you're not interested? What? So sometimes you have to be really careful of the conversation that you tell yourself, the stories that you tell yourself that aren't true,
Mm.
because then I had to go and eat humble pie, he made me work hard to actually cover that ground off and apologize and say, well, come on, please just let's go out. Then I know you want to. And he's never let me live it down.
Again, another rom-com, the perfect rom-com moment, right? And and so how, I'm just trying to think of, like, yeah, those stories that we tell ourselves, because those stories actually show up in business and life, health, fitness, finances. They're all over the place. what what do you do to help people get past those stories so they can be their best selves?
When they are settled that actually the conversations that they want to have with people are good conversations and come from a good place of motivation, then generally it's about, are you doing them? Are you making the calls? Um, and if you're not, that's excuses, right? And if you are doing them and it's not going your way, well, what can we learn from the mistakes that maybe are happening? So the blame lies with you in both instances, but it's about how you reframe it. Don't allow yourselves to lean into excuses. Learn and grow through the mistakes that you're going to make. And how I say this to a lot of my clients is, we are born and our arms and legs are dangling. We have to learn to sit up, to crawl, and to walk. And it's much the same with conversations. You have to have an awful lot of them before you kind of grow into yourself and accept your own personalities, your strengths, your weaknesses. And you kind of get to be quite a good judge of character of who you do want to be in conversation with.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I always talk about how purpose and I think love takes practice. And that's why I think actually talking about what love means to us as individuals, because we talk about it generally, but we don't talk so much about it as individuals. But the more that we can, then we're just more practiced at it, and we can have those conversations. We get to know who we are. Like, we go from that dangling to that sitting up sort of that sort of stage, so we can actually be ourselves. And that's why I hear out of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's makes your ears burn.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so you've been married 20 years. You have two children. Is that correct? Oh, you haven't been married. You've been together with your husband 20 years. You were married sometime, but you've been together for that time.
Yeah.
And what do you do to continue to bring that love in your relationship? Because that's an equal challenge in its own sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, because life gets in the way, children gets in the way, undisturbed time is hard to find. Energy sometimes is hard to find when you're busy at work and, you've got projects around the home. So we actually make a point of cooking for one another. I'll do majority of the cooking, but I love nothing better than to sit and go, well, that could have just been a little bit better than there, a bit more seasoning in there, but because that's kind of getting my own back. But it's nice to be able to cook for one another. And one of the biggest things that keeps us going year on year really is we don't do New Year's resolutions. We just don't do them. We've replaced them with intentional memories. And so as a family and, as a partnership, as a couple, we will sit down and go, right, what would you like to do so that in 10, 20 years, you can look back and go, we did that.
So you're like, what memories do I want to create this year?
Yeah. So it could be holidays, it could be a balloon flight. We've had flights in helicopters. What else have we done? We've done go ape, kind of through the woods, climbing through the woods. There's been all sorts of things over the years that we've done because they're like going to lots of concerts. We've seen Ed Sheeran and Adele and Pink and Paloma Faith, which now you've got a bit of an understanding of the sort of music we like. But it's having those things to look forward to that we know that's our time.
Oh, I love that. It's such a great, because that puts that in context. It takes the pressure off of a goal per se, because I want to create this memory. And I think that, I don't know, that gives me a feeling that's a little bit different than a New Year's resolution.
Yeah. And, to know that if it's something that you want to do, if it's on the board, and something comes up, it's like, he won't be listening. But my husband, for his birthday, wanted to go and see Paolo Nutini. And I basically said, oh, it's on a school night. It's 3 hours drive away. We won't go. But I've booked the hotel and I've paid for the tickets. Mm-hmm. And that's a birthday surprise. But he doesn't think that that's happening. So it's kind of nice to know that you've got those like aces up your sleeve.
And it also must be nice is when you know what they want, and the vice versa, like you're working as a team to create these memories.
Yes. Similarly, when we're on holiday, when you go on holiday and there's family and, you've got 7 or 10 days and a lot of it is either, let's go to the beach or let's, have a look around the local market and there's then not much else to do. We'll make sure that before we go, we'll say, right, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What sort of food do you want? So we create days where it'll be Mum's Day, Dad's Day, Daughter's Day. So we all get a day where we go, we did what we wanted to do on holiday. Because when you come back, you just go, oh, we just sat by the pool every day. So it is about being intentional.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. We can do a whole nother conversation on creating that, like intentional vacations. Because because that you want to go on vacation and have a great time, but sometimes your partner wants to just sit by the pool. That may be what they want.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome. Well, I want to start wrapping this up because we could talk about this so much. There's so much good stuff here. Just one thing I just remembered, I did a bit of a self-study on the top 10 ways to why I'm not falling in love. I Googled and top 10 reasons of why I'm not falling in love. And the number one reason across, and I grabbed 10 of those lists, and then I basically created a spreadsheet of all the different reasons. So I had a sense. Number one reason was I'm not putting myself out there. And to me, that speaks to you not making the calls that you talked about.
Yes. Yeah.
That if you're not putting yourself out there, it doesn't matter what you can or can't do. And so that I think is was a great reminder. And it was just interesting. Like that was the number one thing across those 10 things. So,
Yeah, if you're not putting yourself out there, that's like waiting, hoping that you might bump into somebody in the elevator. But if you're not intentionally open-minded enough for that to happen in the elevator, that moment is never going to happen.
absolutely never going to be there. And so that makes me think of all the movies where they do meet in the elevator. And so part of the wrap up conversation is, what is a favorite book or movie or song that inspires love and romance for you?
Do you know, it's an oldie, but it is the best, and it's got to be a Julia Roberts Pretty Woman, right? And it's kind of a bit of a synergy because she came from a bit of a downtrodden start, didn't she? And she didn't believe she deserved better. And boy, when she was shown how much better she was than who she thought she was comparing herself against, it changed everything, didn't it?
Yes. And when she walked back into the clothing store and she asked, "Oh, you work on commission, right?" to the person who wouldn't sell her before. And that's my favorite line from that movie.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, that's great. Oh, thank you so much. And is there, if you could ask anyone about what love means to them, who might that be for you?
That's a really, really hard one. Because it's kind of been nagging at the back of my mind the whole conversation. Um, and I guess it's going to come back to a childhood. And I would have to ask Elvis Presley because he sang about it so much. But actually, that man kept my faith as a young girl, to the point that my family never told me that he died
Oh, wow.
because I would have been too upset.
Too
So he kind of went through it all, didn't he? So I'd be interested to get his take rather than the headlines.
Ah, that would be such. I love this conversation because it brings up people of different things, and like it would be amazing to talk to Elvis Presley. Like it would be incredible to talk to him about what he knows about love or what love means to him. It would be. The other person that you mentioned is Adele. I would so love to have her on and have this conversation because it would just.
Oh, it's luminaires, really, isn't it? It's, because they can talk about this through their work. It's what makes us all kind of prick our ears up and tune in to that feeling that it gives us.
Absolutely. And before I go to the last question, how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out about your training and just work with you? What's the best way to do that?
Oh, I hang out on LinkedIn, but if you Google Wendy Harris, Making Conversations Count, you'll find me wherever you want to be hanging out.
Okay, great. And do you work with companies or do you also work with individuals? Who's your client so people know?
Both. I work with corporate teams, and that's great because you can create a big impact sometimes. However, my passion is always going to be with individuals because they can make an immediate change.
Absolutely. Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. And I always
Thank you,
end with,
Joey.
what is something that you're taking away from this conversation about that might help you in your own love life?
I've got to step up my game and be a little bit more intentional about my love. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm taking away the intentional memories. I think that's sort of similar on that. I think that's.
Yeah, I've rested my laurels on that for a little too long. I think I've got to step it up and not just be on a kind of yearly or occasional thing. I've got to do it every day. Love yourself and love your partner every day.
Yeah, if you look up a gentleman named Arthur Aaron, Aron, I believe, he is done research and he talks a lot about novelty and danger in relationships and how that helps create and maintain attraction. And he's done studies on he like basically gave couples, like he had a couple do nothing different, do something a little bit different, do something dramatically different over 6 weeks. And he just showed the people that were taking steps, being adventurous, created more memories and deepened their relationship.
I will check that out, Joey. Thank you for
Yeah.
the tip.
Yeah. He's a big, the other fun thing that he did was he basically had a woman stand on a bridge, and one bridge was kind of dangerous, like swingy and a little bit sketchy, and another bridge was more solid. And he had the woman interact with her. And I've heard different stories, so I'm not exactly sure what the interaction was, but the end result is that the woman offered to gave them her number to the guys to call if they had any follow-up questions just regarding the study. And there was a greater number of people who called from the sketchy bridge than the stable bridge. And his takeaway was having a little danger, having a little excitement, it somehow replaces or triggers a sense of love and connection with people.
I can see how that works, because it almost heightens your whole apology system, doesn't it? You're apologetic because you maybe swaying or acting a little bit out of character,
Yeah.
and you lean into that. So
I think it actually goes to what you're saying around memories. The memories that we have that are really strong are probably the ones a little bit scary, a little bit dangerous, a little bit where you went beyond the everyday. So I think you really are tapping into that.
Yeah. Thank you, Joey.
There you go. Awesome. Well, I'm definitely taking away, like, how can I create some intentional memories? I think that is that's very, very important. So I want to thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. Let me know what memories you set yourself to do.
I will do that. Thank you. I will do that. It's a great, let me write that down.
Accountability.
Well, I want to thank you so much. We've been talking, like I said, we could talk about this forever. I really appreciate you taking the time. And to everyone, go out and create some intentional memories. What can you do to add a little danger, a little excitement to, adventure to your dating and to your romance, so that you just create more memories between you and your partner, or you and a future partner, and just let us know how it goes. As always, please ask yourself, what does love mean to you? Because I say the more that we can explore that to ourselves, the greater chance that we all have of creating a love and a romance that really works for us all. And that's the goal of the podcast. And I will see you next time. And thank you for listening. I'll see you next time on the Love Launch podcast. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.